It is so lovely to be here. Thank you, Karen, for joining us. 15 years ago, Karen made the choice to remove her breasts and ovaries, and since then embraced an alternative path to beauty, adorning her left breast with a floral tattoo that gracefully covered her incision lines. This ignited Karen's passion for mastectomy tattoos that began as a quest to empower fellow survivors and previvors in crafting their own unique interpretations of beauty. Karen is a patient, an advocate, and has been involved with the cancer care community for over 15 years. Thank you, Karen, for being here with us today and sharing your experience with us and your amazing adventure with your what? I don't know how I was going to say how many tattoos have you done at Empower Inc. I
Um,
was going to look and I couldn't find a
Over
number.
200, been able to
200
provide over 200 tattoos
across Canada.
across Canada. Well,
Amazing.
across so far within, I would say more, I'll get into that.
Okay.
But also US
Oh,
citizens who have also been,
oh, amazing. Well,
yeah,
thank you for being here and sharing your story and your passion with us today.
my pleasure, my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here. I'm gonna start with a video. We always have a few issues with the sound, but it's just to give you a little bit of an idea of what Empowering is all about. And from there, I'm gonna explain my story. And, Todd, if anyone has any questions, it's up to you if you want to wait until the end. So I am going to start with a video. It takes a second to load. And can everybody see that? Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Yes.
So as Todd said, my name is Karen, and I underwent a risk-reducing double mastectomy at 32 years old because of my hereditary cancer risk. And I'll explain a little bit what that all means. That led me to this initiative that you're seeing in front of you, which is defining beauty on your own terms through Empower Inc., which connects breast cancer survivors with tattoo artists, and they cover their scars for free. So this is a day that we had in September 27th. It just happened in Montreal, and it is 7 women who are reclaiming their bodies post-mastectomy. I should mention that not everybody shares their stories. This is really for whoever wants to share it. Those applicants who are accepted, if they don't want to share anything publicly, they don't need to. I think that's really important. So all of these recipients have shared what this is about. They know and they have given permission. So every artist does it for a different reason. And again, it's just to give you an idea. But first, I want to explain a little bit about my story. I knew nothing about breast cancer in my family or ovarian cancer in my family. I was going along, minding my own business, and found out that a cousin of mine was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. With that knowledge, we found out that she carries an inherited mutation for a high risk of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and other cancers. And again, I knew nothing about it. Sorry, it's just gonna flip. There we go. So what a hereditary cancer mutation is, I was diagnosed with a hereditary mutation called BRCA, which really stands for BR as breast and CA is cancer. There are a multitude of cancer genetic mutations that exist. This one that I have is one of the most common. And what it did was it gave me an inherited lifetime risk of developing breast cancer and ovarian cancer. The way that it works is that you receive 50% genetics from your mother and 50% genetics from your father. So that means half your DNA is from your mother, half is from your father. So you can actually inherit this mutation from either parent. When I went for genetic testing, I was told I had an 87% lifetime risk of developing breast cancer and a 44% chance of developing ovarian cancer. And as you can see from the question on the top, that's how I thought of it. What my odds meant to me. I should mention I was a young mother. I had a 2 and a 4-year-old. I had been newly married, and I found out about this mutation, and all I could think of is, when am I going to get cancer? Now, to get a little bit more, so this picture I put in here because it was funny. This was after I underwent my risk reducing double mastectomy. I think what got me through it, aside from my family, was my sense of humor. So it says, excuse our appearance, we're under construction. And I get a lot of questions, people saying, well, how did you really feel about removing healthy breasts? You could have gotten cancer and then prevented it, or, maybe you would have gotten another cancer, or maybe you would have been hit by a car. But again, the way I saw it was, when I looked at my family history of cancers, I realized that all the women on my side of the family and some of the men had fought these cancers, and they had all passed away. And so I was afraid that I was the next one in line because of my odds. And so I'm going to explain to you a little bit how it works. Everybody has BRCA genes, and what that is, it's a tumor suppressor gene that doesn't work. So I always explain it sort of like a rope. And the way that it works is, we all have a BRCA gene, and the job in the body for men and for women, because men get breast cancer too, is to fight off certain cancerous tumors that enter the body. What happens when you have a hereditary cancer mutation like I do, a BRCA2 mutation, my link is broken. So my ladder is broken, or my string is broken, and all of the genes, all of the tumors can enter into those parts of my body. So the way that the doctor explained it to me is that even if I underwent surveillance and they found breast cancer and I underwent treatment or a double mastectomy, nothing would change because my DNA link is still broken. And unfortunately, because we don't have enough technology to be able to change our DNA, the only option I was faced with was removal of healthy body parts to decrease my risk of cancer. I should also mention that I got this from my father, because again, you get 50% from your mother and 50% from your father. And so it was on my father's side of the family that actually ended up being riddled with cancer. And I will explain to you a little bit what, if genetic testing is right for you, and if in fact it is something that you have questions about, don't hesitate to reach out later or in this talk. So the way that it happened is, my father was called by his first cousin. So his mother and her mother were sisters. In the 60s, there was really no genetic information. All we knew is that my grandmother died of, that cancer, and so did my aunt. But once they started taking blood and blood work from my cousin, who had been recently diagnosed with ovarian cancer, they started looking at our family history, and they saw that there was a lot of early onset cancers that actually were on my father's side of the family. When they see that, then they do understand that you become more eligible for genetic testing. Generally, when somebody is diagnosed a little bit earlier, hospitals will offer genetic testing, but it is always something you can ask. I'm not one of those people who likes to read through all of my PowerPoint presentations, which is why I've left it up here. But I can give you a little bit idea of my family's history, is that there are many cancers that are associated with BRCA mutations. And again, BRCA is only one of those mutations. There's numerous mutations that they test for. So this is just my mutation. So on this slide is really just showing if genetic testing is right for you. I do know that you will get a copy of this, so you don't need to take any notes. You'll have access to this. I knew that genetic testing was right for me because when they had tested my cousin, who was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in her 50s, they were able to find that DNA through blood test and see what it was. Then they reached out to my father, because they're first cousins, and my dad had a 50% chance of inheriting this mutation. And then if he inherited it, which he did, I therefore had a 50% chance of inheriting it, and I did. I was tested. I met with a genetic counselor, which is absolutely necessary. You need to understand what a positive genetic mutation means. It's important to understand all the facts, and only a genetic counselor can explain all of that to you. They let you know your options, they let you know your statistics, they help you with your family history, and they guide you. So I met with a genetic counselor before my testing, and I met with them after. I do want to also mention that these hereditary cancer genetic mutations, most of them are only 5 to 10% of the general population. So I don't want people to panic thinking, oh my goodness. It is more common in a few different ethnicities. So if you're of Eastern European Jewish ancestry, and if you have any relatives that have breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer, and I'll explain a little bit more of these. If you're Eastern European, you have a 1 in 43% chance, a 1 in 43 chance of inheriting this mutation. If you are not Eastern European, it's generally 5 to 600, 1 to 5 to 600. So there is really a big difference between Eastern European Jews. Again, all of these genetic mutations come with their own risks. So looking at a lot of these breast cancer genetic mutations, you'll see the most common are breast cancer, ovarian cancer, melanoma, prostate cancer in men, male breast cancer, and sometimes colon cancers. The others are a little bit less common, but they are still there. So to give you an idea of my family history, my paternal grandmother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in her 40s. My paternal aunt was diagnosed in her 40s with breast cancer. My paternal cousin was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in her 50s. I did have a cousin who has the mutation, who thankfully it was not cancer, but they did find a lump in his breast. I have a paternal uncle who is living with melanoma. And I also have my father who was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Aside from my cousin and my uncle, all have passed. It's a very aggressive cancer. And so making the decision to remove my healthy breasts and ovaries for me was a no-brainer. Again, I'm going to give you access to this, so do not worry about having to take notes. Again, I explain, is genetic testing right for you? It's a little bit more information about whether you think whether you think it's something you would like to look into. What I always suggest is you sit down, you take both sides of your family history. So you look at your paternal side and you look at your maternal side and write down what you know about cancer in your family, what type of cancer, and what age, if you know. Once you have that, it's easier to see if there is more prevalence of cancer in your family. And from there, you can always speak with your healthcare professional. If you're living with a cancer diagnosis, you can speak with them as well. So I do want to get back to my story before I get into EMPOWERink. When I was diagnosed with this BRCA mutation, it was 15 years ago, and nobody was talking about it. I had doctors telling me to eat healthy and exercise and they told me what I was doing was extreme. Of course, I had doctors that supported me, but not a lot of people knew about this. So I felt alone, and I decided to start a support group on Facebook. And it was for other women. I made it only for women. Although men do deal with this mutation, women deal with mastectomy and ovary removal, and men don't have to worry about either of those. So I founded this BRCA Sisterhood, and it became a place for women to come and share their experiences with other women who were making these risk-reducing decisions on their own. I should mention that what I did was good for me. I removed my healthy breasts and ovaries. That was something I had to do to feel comfortable in my own skin. Whatever you choose to do when you're given a diagnosis of a hereditary mutation is up to you. You're the same person you were before the diagnosis. I believe that information is power and knowledge is power, and that having that information doesn't mean you need to undergo removal of your breasts or your ovaries. It just means now you have more information, you can be more proactive, you can do more surveillance, you can be followed a little bit more strictly. So that is why I feel it's really important. So when I underwent my double mastectomy, I chose to have myself reconstructed with implants, but there are many other options, and there is no right way to deal with a breast cancer diagnosis. If you meet with a plastic surgeon and a breast surgeon, they should be giving you all of your options. Of course, they should be able to give their opinion on what they think is best for you, but it's good to know all your options because you want to be able to do what you feel is best with the help of your doctor and your loved ones, obviously. So I listed a few of the options for breast reconstruction. It used to be that having no reconstruction was considered not complete. There's been a full movement in the last few years where now women are asking to not have their breasts reconstructed, and it's called aesthetic flat closure. Then there are breast implants, which are most common. One of the reasons being that it is the most, I don't want to say simple because none of this is simple, but it's the most common form. And then there are other ways to reconstruct as well, using different body parts and tissue from there. Some women also, if their nipples have been removed, they will undergo nipple reconstruction or nipple tattoos. That's something you discuss with your surgeons and with your doctors. So back to my story, I was a young mom. I had a 2 and a 4-year-old, and I knew that I had to look in the mirror after my mastectomy and feel confident. And I didn't know how to do that. I wasn't sure. Emotionally, I had prepared myself for losing my breasts at such a young age. And yes, I was lucky that I was able to nurse my children. And yes, I was lucky that I made this decision after I had met somebody and married, and I didn't have to date feeling maybe a little bit insecure. But a mastectomy is really an amputation, and that's what people, I think, sometimes don't realize. It is a removal of one of your most feminine qualities. For a lot of women, we associate our breasts with our sexuality, with our femininity. And by making this decision, it's scary to think about what you would look like afterwards in the mirror. And so I get so many people who ask me, how did you feel? Or, what can I do to prevent feeling a certain way? And the truth is, there is no way. I think the most important advice I can offer somebody is to allow yourself to mourn and grieve my loss, or your loss, I should say. It's very hard to look in the mirror. Not only have you either, been faced with a really high risk of cancer, or you've been faced with a breast cancer. And yes, you understand that removing them is the right thing to do, but it's daunting and it's scary. And I just feel that as women, we are allowed to mourn this loss, and it's so important to have that permission. Everybody feels differently. I've spoken with male breast cancer survivors who have had a mastectomy as well. And yes, men do get breast cancer. They do have breast tissue. And they also feel a sense of loss and insecurity, looking in the mirror, not comfortable in their own skin. And so there's no right time to grieve. You have to do what's best for you. And I think that that is sort of my best advice with that. So this is sort of what I explained. I think people forget, when you see somebody who has an amputation of a leg, it's very obvious to understand it's an amputation, but because we wear our scars underneath our clothes, a lot of people don't see it like that. And I can tell you that after I did undergo my double mastectomy, I did give myself time to mourn. As a matter of fact, when they had taken the bandages off, I didn't even feel comfortable to look in the mirror. I had asked my father excuse me. I did not ask my father, my husband. I had asked my husband to look because I almost needed validation that it didn't look so horrible. And I didn't look, and I went home by myself, and I allowed myself to grieve. And took a little while, and then I picked myself up, and I knew why I had done what I had done. And so I tried to just focus on being positive and knowing that this was the right decision for me. I can tell you that I never had any regrets. And the reason that I say that is because people do ask me. I did undergo 8 surgeries due to complications, and I had decided that after my last surgery, I was done with surgeries. I no longer wanted to be in the operating room, and I had chosen to remove my nipples as well as my breast because there is a chance of cancer in the milk ducts. So I decided to remove those as well. And after so many surgeries, I was done. And I have always loved tattoos. And so I decided 7 years ago, 8 years ago, that I was going to find a tattoo artist and I was going to cover my scars with a beautiful tattoo and define beauty on my terms. I felt that it was really important to have control back of my own body. When you undergo treatments for a double mastectomy and reconstruction, and then you undergo complications, there's never one time during that whole process that you are 100% in control of your body. And you feel that as a patient, and you know that obviously you put your trust in your healthcare professionals. It has nothing to do with that. It's just they know what's best in certain things, and so you listen and you go with your, all of your professional advice, but you have no control. And so I felt that putting a tattoo on my scars would really give me the opportunity to have control and do what I want, when I wanted, where I wanted. And so that's what I decided to do. And I found an artist and we worked together, and she created what I think is a spectacular mastectomy tattoo. And then I came home that night and I spoke with my husband and I said, I've been open and honest about my hereditary cancer mutation and my mastectomy and everything that I've gone through. I really want to share my tattoo. How do you feel about it? He said, okay. So I made a post. I hit post on Facebook and I went to bed. And when I woke up the next morning, it had gone a little viral. And I realized that people were interested in this option and were curious and wanted to know more. And so I decided that I think I sort of wanted to be able to pay it forward to other ladies. And that's what I decided I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure how to do it. So I started looking online and I saw this one post about one woman who had had her scars covered with a tattoo, but you didn't even see her face. All you really saw was just her chest. And I somehow tracked down where the image belonged to, and I found out another little organization in Colorado. And I said, I love this idea. Can I bring it to Montreal? And he said, sure, take it and run with it. And so that's what I did. So I brought my first tattoo day in October 2017. And I always knew that it was really more about quality than quantity. So I spoke with my own personal tattoo artist, Megan, who created my tattoo, and asked her if she would be interested. And she said yes. And I found another artist who was also interested. And so I started with my first day in 2017. And these two beautiful women were able to cover their mastectomy scars and define beauty on their terms. And looking at the pictures in the mirror, looking at themselves, I think that their expressions say everything. And I was really proud of it, and I was excited, and it was getting traction. And I realized that it needed to be an option that surgeons talked about as well. And slowly I started reaching out to other surgeons and talking with them. Now, I do have some women who will ask a few questions. They might say, are tattoos dangerous? Are they known to cause cancer? I am not a doctor. So if you are really concerned and this is something that you think might be interesting, I would like you to speak with your doctor. That being said, I have spoken with plastic surgeons. The ones I've spoken to seem to say it's safe, but I always advise that you speak with your healthcare professional. Another thing that some people do ask is what if they're suffering from lymphedema, which is sometimes, swelling of the arms after removal sometimes of lymph nodes. I would say for that we have had women who have come in with lymphedema. We like to work on the other side to stay away from it. Again, please speak with your doctor. It's always best to talk with your doctor first. I can tell you that we have had women who are living with stage 4 cancer, so metastatic cancer, as Patty in the middle was living with stage 4 metastatic cancer, and she spoke with her doctor said it's okay. So I think these images give you an idea of how much freedom these women feel once they look in the mirror. Now, I can add that when I was speaking with these women, I asked them what in the mirror, when they look in the mirror, what do they see before the tattoo? And a lot of them see trauma. They see trauma. Some of them say they suffer PTSD because when they look in the mirror, they're not just seeing scars. They're reminded of the cancer diagnosis that they've been given, or the treatments that they've undergone, or the radiation, or the surgeries. And so they suffer this form of trauma every time they look in the mirror. And I can tell you, as a woman who has undergone a double mastectomy, you can't hide from yourself. Your breasts, your chest is right in front of you. It's always there to see. So I was told that once these women actually covered their scars, they felt a new sense of power. And that's why I feel it's so important that this is an option. It's not for everybody, but again, everybody defines beauty on their own terms the way that they want. So these were the early years. Then I decided that it was really important for this to become something that was based in Canada. I saw this as a movement. I saw this as part of a movement of men and women gaining back some sense of control. And as I mentioned before, it's the first time since diagnosis where these recipients are in control of their body 100%. No doctor is telling them what treatment to take, and no doctor is telling them what surgery they think is best for them or what not to do after surgery. This is every person who comes in the door for this program to have 100% control of your body. And that's what I have done with this. So in May 2022, I decided to start EMPOWERink. And EMPOWERink provides complimentary mastectomy tattoos to breast cancer survivors, previvors, which are people like myself who have undergone risk-reducing mastectomies due to hereditary mutation, and thrivers, which are those people who are living with advanced stage cancer. And my goal was to be able to make this national right now and hopefully international, and be able to provide different tattoo days, different EMPOWERink days in different cities across Canada. And that's what we started to do. So I started with 3 different events in the first year. One was in Montreal, one was in Quebec City, one was in Oshawa. Since then, I've had in Toronto, and we're growing. So now I'm going to explain to you a little bit how it works. Now, this is my website, and I can tell you right now that we do have an EMPOWERink Day in the works for December 1st in Quebec City. It is, we have, I believe, 13 spots available, so 13 artists. And if you can make it to a location, you can apply. It is open to anyone, Canadian, US, international, and I have received quite a few women who have applied from the US. So the way that it works is I work with some artists that I vet. It's really important that the artists that I work with are in it for the right reasons. So they need to be comfortable working with scar tissue. They need to be comfortable talking about breast cancer and working with women because it's a very emotional day. And so they need to understand that this is more than just a tattoo. This is sort of a new beginning for a lot of these women. So they need to be comfortable with that. And they need to be doing it for the right reasons. I don't want them to feel that they need to share their images, because that's not what this day is about. As I mentioned, if you're interested in this program, you do not need to share your images on social media. You don't. It's the first thing I mention. That's part of control. Some women, like myself, I'm proud of sharing and showing others that you can be good post mastectomy, but there are plenty of people out there who want to keep that private, as they should. It is their own body and they can do what they want. So that's the first thing I mention. Once I've recruited all of the artists, I open up my applications. What happens next is the application process takes about 10 to 15 minutes to apply, but it's important to be able to fill out all the information. So it is not nipple tattooing. I should mention that. It's not nipple tattooing. That's not something we do. That is covered. I know right now in Quebec, it is covered by Medicare, and I believe it's covered outside of Quebec as well. I can check into that, but I believe nipple tattoos are now covered under healthcare. Fairly recently, but I believe they are. These are artistic tattoos that generally take between 4 and 7 hours to complete. And so it's a full day event. So the way that it works is you apply. And what I ask is the following. I ask, first of all, why you're applying. So somebody writes about that. You also have to have an idea of what you want. You cannot apply and then expect the artist to create something for you. This is all about you. So you look through images, you come up with your own ideas, and I ask each recipient to send in 5 ideas of what they're looking for. I also ask each recipient to send in a topless picture of their chest. And the reason why I ask for that is because I need to send that to the artist so the artist understands the canvas that they're working with, and I can make sure that they're comfortable as well. Those images, the only one who will ever see them is myself and whichever artist I am going to reach out to. I also ask, for sure, you need to be at least 1 year post-surgery. The reason that I ask that is because scars are pink and it takes time for them to heal. And if they're not fully healed, the ink does not settle properly. And so we want to make sure that you're getting the most beautiful tattoo possible. That's why we ask for at least 1 year post-surgery. Another question I ask is, what if you have other tattoos? As long as you have no tattoos on your chest area, you can absolutely apply. So if you have tattoos on your arms, and I would say 50% of the women have never had a tattoo before who apply, and 50% of the recipients have. So it's really a mixed bag. Another question I get is, does it hurt? I can tell you it doesn't hurt as much as a mastectomy. Anyone who has applied for this, for this program has been through far worse. I have never had anyone tap out, and there are way more happy tears and no sad or painful tears. So what you do is you send in that whole application, and then I receive it. Now, each artist has a different style, and so based on the request of each recipient, I look to that artist to see their style to make sure that we're actually able to match them perfectly. Some artists are color artists, some artists are black and white artists, black and gray, I should say. So I want to make sure that the requests that come in are absolutely the perfect match with the recipient and with the artist. So once I think I have a good match, I send that match to the artist and I ask them how they feel about it, because it's important that they're comfortable as well. And so they look at it and then they make sure. Once the artist is comfortable with their recipient, I then connect the artist and the recipient. Well, first I call and I welcome them, and then I hear all the excitement, which is so much fun. And then I connect the two of them. And then the artist and the recipient work together as they would in a normal consultation. And the first connection is always either through a video call or a phone call or in person if you're in that location, so that you can both get on the same page. Recipient explains a little bit about what they're looking for, sends different images if maybe they have a better idea since they sent in their application. And then the artist takes all their ideas and they do what they do best, which is create a spectacular tattoo image, and then they'll send it to you. You will see an image of your tattoo before that day. Again, nothing is a surprise. So if there's little things you want changed, they'll change them on the spot, and then they do the whole stenciling, and the day begins. The recipient is also invited with a loved one, and that's really important. You know, it's a day of celebration. We pop champagne and we have a beautiful catered lunch and music and photography, and we're capturing all of these beautiful moments. You're always invited with a loved one, be it male or female, as long as they're over 18 years old. And I did put this in here. I am going to pull it out. Todd will share it because the application is open right now. I'll give you an idea of what it looks like. It's quite simple. It's only open for another week or two, and then it closes. Then it will open again when there's a new location. So it's a really simple application. It's completely private, and you do not need to worry about you don't need to worry about anyone else seeing it. Oops. So I started my first EMPOWERink Day, and it was really important to make sure that we offered this opportunity to everyone, and that is women who have had no reconstruction, women who have undergone reconstruction, women of different ethnicities, women of different color, men of different color, men of different ethnicities. We do not discriminate against anyone. This is open to any male or female, as I mentioned before. Now, the male to female ratio of breast cancer, there is quite a big difference, but 1 in 1,000 men are diagnosed with breast cancer, and some men do have, their nipple removed, their breast tissue, and I was really hoping that we would be able to invite a man to our EMPOWERink Days. I think that this day is not the typical breast cancer event, and often men say that they feel like they're surrounded by all things women when they're dealing with breast cancer, but because this is an event filled with celebration and love, I really was hoping that we would be able to provide some men this beautiful gift. And lo and behold, last year we had our first male recipient, and I was so proud to be able to provide this gift to him. When he wrote to me in his application, he said that he felt uncomfortable walking around in the house topless since he underwent his unilateral mastectomy. And he told me when he came in that when he applied, he thought there was no chance he was going to get called. And I was so excited to call him, and he's such a lovely man. And so I called him. The event was in Quebec City, and he came from New Brunswick. So just to give you an idea, people do travel to come to these events. He came with his wife, and he absolutely loved it. As you can see, it was the crest of his family. I got an email 2 months later from his daughter saying, "I just want to thank you for this gift. My dad is walking around topless again." So boy, did that make me smile. And then he sent me a message a little while later saying that he had added to his tattoo and he loves it. So it just goes to show you how something that we think could be such a small issue, when we're looking at it from somebody else, for that person is everything. I love capturing these moments. I think that the visuals say it all. And again, we provide any design, whatever anyone wants. And what I love is each tattoo really does express each person's personality. It really does. And I think that it just, again, it offers one additional option for these survivors. And I'm really proud of this initiative. As I mentioned, my next Empower Inc. Day is in Quebec City, December 1st at Paradox Tattoos. I will be introducing all of my artists, so you get to see styles. And if people, in fact, are interested in applying, they can see what type of artists we have. I only get the best artists, the ones who are the most passionate, who are in it for all of the right reasons, and are so, so talented. Next year, I'll have more availabilities. I can say that my goal moving forward is to be an organization that hopefully is able to cover all type of cancer scarring. But for now, the goal is to be able to have these events all over Canada. Originally, when I started, I had actually started with just women undergoing a unilateral or a double mastectomy, but I'm very excited to say that I invited my very first recipient who had undergone a partial mastectomy. So although her whole breast was not removed, part of it was, and she did have a deformation, and it was really making her feel all of the bad feels that I explained. And so I was able to invite her. So I am growing, I am expanding, and this need will continue to hopefully grow in this community. And I'm hoping to get a few other men who can apply. But until then, I will be here for anybody who is interested in this option. As well, I also am here to answer any questions about any hereditary mutations or any genetic testing. Just think it's extremely important to ask questions and have your information. What you choose to do with that information is up to you. So I do have time for questions about whatever it is that if anyone has. I always find it weird when I sort of talk to myself or
Yeah, it is a little bizarre, isn't it, Karen?
you know, like
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
It's like a one-way conversation, isn't it? Yeah.
right. And I mean,
Mm.
I never met a conversation I didn't like, but
No, me neither.
you
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah, but oh, yeah. But thank you for taking the time to share your story and just really share your perspective with us today. That really kind of hit home, that idea of a mastectomy is an amputation that goes unnoticed
yeah,
and people are often unaware and how hard that must be for individuals um, to go through this, with this isolation and the emotional and psychological impacts
yeah,
of that. And I'm so thankful that there's people like yourself and organizations like Empower Inc. that are able to give back the feeling of control and really redefine what it is to be beautiful. So thank you so
yeah.
much for taking the time today. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. I really, I really just feel that the more we know, no, I think I,
Classic Canadian, yeah,
right.
the tones, yes,
I know,
yeah,
I
and
think
I agree
that
100%.
that's what it is. I think it's so important to stress really that there is no right way to do anything. There is no right way. This is my story, and this is how I chose to do things. I have a daughter and a son who will have to undergo genetic testing. I just want them to know that I'm okay. There are options out there, and to not be scared of information.